heck is going on? Who's here? Who are you?
Net, I am your father.
Oh God. How'd you find me? Huh?
Net, I'm still your father.
No! Gosh, how'd you find me?
Net, I'm your father.
Oh my gosh! How'd you even get inside?
Net, I'm your father.
Oh gosh. Jeez. Okay.
Net,
Oh.
I'm your father.
I was thinking about, because I'm like Net Alliance, I'm thinking about calling you like Net Father. Is that cool?
Okay, you can do that.
Like Net Father, soon to be Net Grandfather, or something like that.
All right,
okay?
if you want to do that.
You want to? Okay.
Granddad.
Net Dad?
Net Granddad.
Net Granddad, okay.
Better with that. Father's an old, grandfather sounds old.
What's up, Net Soldiers? I'm Net Alliance. Welcome back to another video. Today we have the Father's Day special. I'm here, joined by my father, and he's Net Father, but soon he'll be Net Granddad. So, everyone say hello.
Hi, everybody.
Today, we're going to be talking about some Star Wars. We're here with an OG Star Wars fan. He's not the biggest fan in the world, but he is a fan of the franchise at least. So, we're going to be talking about a few different things here and there. We're going to start off with just some of his earlier experiences and stuff like that, and then we're going to transition into some fan questions you guys sent for him. So, ready?
Ready.
Let's begin.
Do it.
Okay. All right, so let's talk about your first experience with like Star Wars. Like, how did you hear of it? How big was it at the time? Did you think it was going to blow up as much as it did? Like, what was your initial like experience with it?
I really wasn't a big theater fan, but when it came down to it, a bunch of friends of mine were to the theater movies and said, let's go check out this new cool movie. So we all went to it, and it was a really neat time. Totally different from anything we had seen to that point. And of course, all the theatrics with the space flight and all that. It was just a really neat movie to see at that time.
There's not much like stuff like that, and if there is stuff like that, it was usually done like on like comic books or TV, right? So,
well, kinda, yeah. And keep in mind, my background to space, besides NASA, would have been, you know, as a kid growing up in elementary school, we were watching things like My Favorite Martian, which was a sitcom. Might be able to catch Nick at Night. Also, another one was Lost in Space, and they had a fancy robot and a kind of kitschy crew that was still fun for us kids to watch. Started black and white, finally turned to color. And from there we went on to, you know, being raised on Star Trek, the original.
Okay, I never heard of any other ones except for Star Trek. So there you go. That's one thing that everyone probably has heard of, because, you know, the big Star Wars and Star Trek feud that has gone on for years. So
outside of that, I guess some of the outer space things might have been other things that certain older characters had actually been in, and they were black and white. But we really didn't have a lot of space techno stuff like Star Wars was. And it was a really cool time to really see that movie, because it pretty much blew everybody away. It became the movie for everybody to see.
Yeah. It was. Would you say like it's probably one of the very first like summer blockbusters?
Oh, it was huge at that point. I mean, we didn't realize it. We didn't know it because we weren't big tech fans or space fans or anything. But once it really hit, it just took over. You know, we walked out of the theater thinking, oh, that was really neat. You know, and then we got some pizza and, you know, soda or something, and pretty much figured that was it. We'd seen the best and nothing more to come.
Yeah. And as time has told, clearly that has not been the case. Star Wars blew up, and it became more than just the initial film. So with that, how did you feel about seeing the film, and how, like, what were your expectations for the future? I know you said like at the time when movies were made initially, there wasn't like sequels and plans and stuff like that. So that's interesting to hear, though.
Yeah, we didn't really think about a sequel to that movie. It was just great Star Wars flick. We really enjoyed it, and you walked out thinking, okay, we've seen it. That's it. No more. And then of course more.
Yeah.
You all know.
Yeah, I mean that's cool. And I'm actually curious. Did you see any other Star Wars movies in theaters at all?
I think I've seen most of them. Maybe one on TV, but once you see the franchise in the theater, you got to see more of it in the theater.
Yeah.
And of course, you well know we've gone to the IMAX now to see stuff, and to me, that's the only place to see things like this anymore. It's just good to see.
All right, now with that said, we got a little bit more knowledge onto Net Father, soon to be Net Granddad, and on how he felt about the Star Wars franchise and stuff like that. So let's get to some of the subscribers' questions. The first one is from Hufflepuff Pride and Defend Snape. That's his name.
Okay. Parents are pretty good at that stuff.
Do you like the new Star Wars movies Disney has made so far?
Yeah, I do. I don't think, being not a huge Star Wars fan, I like it, but I can't really say that I'm opposed to any more Star Wars coming out. I think it's good stuff that they're doing.
So like as far as like The Last Jedi goes, the one we actually just watched in December,
right?
You would say you were a fan of the film overall.
Oh yeah, it was pretty good.
Really?
Yeah, I think the storyline was pretty good. Now, we had discussed a few things prior, which I can no longer recall what we discussed about it. But I would say I'd watch it again in 5 years on TV for something to do some night.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Because there's a big thing online right now that like a lot of people like The Last Jedi pretty much split the fan base in half. It's crazy. I actually predicted it, and it happened, and I was like, sorry, like, aha, I got it right, but oh wait, oh man, now the fans are split. But that's how Star Wars fans have always been. People either hate it or people love it, So would you say you're more like in the middle? You're like, it's all right.
I'm definitely in the middle.
Okay, so you're not like on for one side or anything like that.
No, as actors get older, it's just a fact of life. You've got to, if you want to keep the franchise still rolling, you've got to do something with their character because they can't live forever.
All right, next one is from Alexander Wiest. And he says, what's your favorite Star Wars film so far? Out of the 10 that have been released so far.
Well, I got to tell you, just because it's like that first everything. The first Star Wars is definitely the best.
Star Wars A New Hope?
Yeah.
Well, initially it was called Star Wars, and then they rebranded it Star Wars Episode 4 A New Hope.
Yeah, they kind of ruined the name by doing that. As far as I'm concerned, it's Star Wars. That's Star Wars.
Why would you say it's your favorite, though? Because of its, like, it was just such like a big thing that kind of came out of nowhere. You weren't like really expecting it, and you're like, oh wow, this was really cool, and then it blew up.
Well, I think it's pretty much got to do with timing in life. It's like everything. Your first favorite song, your first favorite whatever, food you like or something like that. It was the coolest thing at the time, at the right time in my life. Now,
I gotcha.
Had it come out maybe when I was raising some kids at the time, I might not have even watched it or remembered it. But, at that point in my life, it was teenager, it was the greatest thing to see, and it's just those things stick in your head.
Yeah, I gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the same thing with me with like my first Star Wars. I mean, I saw other Star Wars movies beforehand, but like my first Star Wars movie was Episode 3. We actually went to go see that one 2005. Remember?
Yeah.
Like I actually went there for my birthday. As well as far as quality goes, it's not the best out of all of them, but it's like my movie, So I guess I could see how that would work. So
and you can't really.
But A New Hope still holds up. Like the original one still holds up till this day. I mean, there's some like special effects wise, there's some things that aren't like as like okay, but like as far as the storyline goes, the hero's tale theme that goes through there.
That is true.
It's a good film.
Of course,
overall.
But you kids are spoiled with the effects that you get these days, because everything being done back in the old day before pre-digital. The analog effects, you got to give those people kudos because they really pulled stuff off that looked really good.
And like they do like miniature models, and they have like they film them like they do like cinematic trickery to make these models look like real.
Sure.
And
they did.
It's impressive for real, and so it's almost kind of sad to see that that I guess art form you'd use.
I'd use that.
Yeah, that craft like kind of going extinct a little bit, you know what I mean? 'Cause especially when you can just go on your computer and make like a CGI model of like an airplane or just whatever you want, and you can just have that happen, and you instantly just take out like all that stuff. It's kind of like the guy who initially did the claymations for like all the movies for like years before, like King Kong, like the old King Kong.
Yeah, the black and white.
Yeah. Like the stop motion, like you had to like take a frame and like rah, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so the actual guy who used to do that for all the big Hollywood films, when he saw the CGI for the T-Rex in Jurassic Park 1, he was like, I'm extinct. Do you know what I mean? And you have to admire the craft, but you also kind of have to realize it's evolving. You know, it's Hollywood evolving. It's this a different way of getting a better effect, and it's getting to the point where it's getting like cheaper to do that compared to practical now, which is interesting. So,
you know, and I have to wonder too with when you talk about the difference in the ability of the crafters to do the new craft. Is it causing the audience to lose some of their own ability to see and interpret what they're actually looking at? You know, because back in the day when you'd watch the claymation character do its thing, it wasn't real. It's kind of like a closed door, and you got to figure out what's on the other side, and your mind helps fill in the spaces. Whereas today, it's so perfectly done, it leaves nothing to the imagination of the beholder.
Okay, yeah, I can see that.
So I don't know if it really actually helps the audience to see a storyline better, or if it hinders their ability to kind of create their own storyline in their own mind that's separate. Like we're watching the same show, but we see it so perfectly done, you and I walk out with the same exact feeling.
Yeah, that's true.
Whereas my life experience still kind of drew into certain things that weren't quite so perfectly done, and yours would too. And we walk away with a slightly different perspective when the show isn't exactly perfectly digitally done and mastered with a different craft. I mean, there's both ways you can look at it.
I mean, it's true. Like, films almost lose like their grit when they're too squeaky clean, I guess you could say. They lose like their creative style. An example being like the Hobbit films compared to the Lord of the Rings films. Lord of the Rings films, like all of their orcs, like the bad guys. I don't know if you've seen Lord of the Rings movies. Probably a long time ago.
Yeah, been a while.
So they're just men with makeup and prosthetics and stuff, and you know they are. But then when you compare them to the CGI, like the computer generated ones from the new movies, they're like so fake, and you know, like, I know that it's CGI, and it almost pulls you out of the film seeing that. Yeah. So I agree with that. I'm glad that films are starting to kind of, or well, more recently, are starting to kind of find a balance between practical and CGI effects.
Right.
So, actually, the new Jurassic World is doing that, so that's actually going to be really cool to see what they do. I haven't seen the movie yet, but I'm excited. So, yeah, I mean, for a while there, it was pretty much like everyone was pushing the practical effects out and just cranking on the CGI, and sometimes it can be overdone a little bit. So, of course, I guess that's my opinion, or our opinion, I should say, because everyone's entitled to their own opinion, but that's just how I feel.
Yeah.
All right, moving on to the next one we have from Nathan Kirk, and he said, "Who is your favorite Star Wars character and why?" Out of all the Star Wars characters.
You know what, Nate? I can't say I really had a favorite because they were all so extraordinary in their own character. You had your robots, which were really cool. And like I said, the robots that we were experienced before that were just, droids without a lot of emotion.
I guess that's true. Like, Star Wars kind of introduced, like
real autonomous,
like sentient robots, kind of. Like, the idea that they have their own feelings and stuff. That is weird. I didn't think about that.
You know, there was that one number 5, Alive. Wasn't that a Disney flick? I can't recall who produced that, but, you know, there was a robot that became alive or self-aware.
Oh, okay.
You know, and that was about as close as it got, and it's comedy, you know, but here we have a Star Wars event with robots kicking in and doing humanistic things and helping out with personalities. Now then you talk about, you know, you can't give up Luke, you can't give up Hans, you can't say anything less about Leia and all the characters. I mean, it's just you kind of got to love them all. That's all there is to it.
But like, out of all of them, though, do you know what I mean? If you could be one, who would you be? That's usually the one you prefer to. That's
tough to say. You know, it really is tough to say. It wouldn't be Chewie. Although, you know, everybody made that noise in their life sometime, but I don't think I could even do it without hurting my vocal cords anymore, but it would not be Chewie.
What about Luke, maybe?
Luke's a contender.
Okay.
Hans would be a contender. Yeah.
Okay.
Obi-Wan's just too old.
Okay.
You know, got that age thing. I'm not for age yet.
Okay, next one is from Tragan Parr. Sounds like a Star Wars name, kind of.
It really does. What planet is he from?
The question is, do you like Luke in The Last Jedi? Now, we talked about this when we initially saw The Last Jedi.
That's right.
My question, I guess, I'm gonna kind of elaborate on this a little bit. Like, did you like the handling of Luke? And when you initially saw Luke in like the original films, did you ever expect that to be his end, the way he goes? Do you know?
Well, as we had spoke too, you know, when you're able to interpret and extrapolate your character and your show past the point of the end, would I have seen Luke there? I don't think I would have seen him on the island, live him as a hermit. You know, that just would not have been where I would have seen Luke. Neat to see him there, though. You know, a complete surprise for everybody. Yeah. Do I think he should have been terminated? Again, people grow old. So do the actors. And unless you're like a James Bond that keeps coming back as different people that even look differently.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, this series, of course, keeps moving the franchise forward. And then, you know, they had to put him out somewhere. Had to put him to pasture. And you don't want to see it, but it had to be done. And I think it was done in a fairly decent way. You know, they came back with the great big powers.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, kicking butt all over the place as a really neat Jedi. And kind of the way he just turned dust was kind of weird. But other than that...
That's just one of those Star Wars things, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think Luke's character was portrayed in a way that was not bad. There's probably a better word for that, but probably not bad.
Okay.
Yeah, we'll use that one.
Like you would say just like okay, right?
I'd say it's better than okay. I mean,
okay.
You could pick a bunch of different directions that character could have gone, and this is one of those.
Yeah.
You know, there may be a dozen that you would say those would have been good ways for the character to start and go. But the path that was traveling on that show was a good one, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. That's actually, I think you might be in the minority when it comes to that thought process online. A lot of people don't like that Luke died the way he did. A thing is that, for me anyways, is that Luke being such a massive part of the character, you could even say he is the biggest name in all of Star Wars, next to Vader or something like that. You could say that. The idea that there is still one more film in the trilogy that they're making, the idea that Luke Skywalker was portrayed as, at least in like the expanded universe, which is pretty much like the stuff that was written before Disney bought it and kind of erased that history and then made their own. Do you know, Luke was like the most powerful Jedi to ever live. Do you know, like that type of thing? Like he was a big deal. So when Disney kind of wrote Luke to kind of not be as big of a character as he initially is, people are really not like okay with that. So I mean, I guess it all comes down to a matter of opinion. I'm okay with it too. I think it's all right. I would like to see a little bit more of Luke though. I kind of felt like if you remember, Luke used the Force to transport himself, or at least transport his soul across the universe, galaxy, whatever. However far it was, which is really powerful. It goes to show how strong he is.
He was pretty good.
But if he was that powerful to be able to do that, why wouldn't he be able to be strong enough to fly to that same planet, go out there with an actual lightsaber, and then just like use the Force to crush those walkers? You know what I mean? Like it's a big question.
There's one of those things you have no answer. There's no answer. They picked that storyline and that's what they stuck with. And
yeah,
it worked. I mean, it worked.
I'm okay with it. I do think that there could have done something better, but that's just my opinion on that one. But
maybe they'll get you right the next one.
So overall, you would say like that was a fitting end to the Luke Skywalker you saw in the original trilogy, you know, with A New Hope.
I do think so.
So you think that's okay?
Yeah,
okay.
I think they've set the series up to continue on, which is what they've realized. It's a moneymaker. You know, that's what it's about. And they've got new characters filling in the places and the spaces, and it's going to continue on. You know, and I think they did a good job of leaving some open ends there so they can keep making movies.
I know. Actually, a little funny thing I'll add here. Mark Hamill, the one who actually is... He's the actor who plays Luke Skywalker. Right. He actually went on record saying he did not like the way that Luke was killed off.
Yeah.
Don't you think that's like interesting?
Yeah, that is
like,
kind of interesting.
Like, he didn't expect that to be the end of Luke, do you know? And I think that might be... It's a good question to ask, like, is that the correct thing to do? Like, when the actor who has been Luke Skywalker for 30 years, do you know, the face who is Luke Skywalker, if he's, like, not on board 100% with the script... Now, of course, he did what he did because, you know, he has to. He's the actor, right?
Right.
But you have to ask the question, like, the person who would theoretically know Luke Skywalker the most, was it the right way to kind of go against his wishes? Like, he actually read the script and, like, went to the director and said, like, I don't know if this would how Luke Skywalker would be. And the director was just kind of like, well, that's how we wrote the movie, so just go with it, you know?
Yeah.
He's like, okay, you know?
Well, you know, his job was to just act the part, you know, not to write. If he wanted to be the writer, he should have been the writer.
But the question is, do you think that was a good call for the directors to do? Or, like, I should ask a better question would be, do you think that his opinion should have been taken into account a little bit more? Or do you think that it was okay?
Nah, it's all about, you know, the money. The writers wrote the script, and that's how it was going to be, and he's the actor.
Yeah.
You know, and I get what, you know, keep in mind, I grew up watching Mark, you know, when he was the Olympian. So that goes back a while. And it's kind of neat to see the athlete himself, you know, having gone into the script as, first of all, Luke Skywalker, and then, of course, working his way through all the series, and now he's an older guy, probably older than me, and I'm not that old. But I could see how he was kind of, you know, attached to his character as Luke, and really would have had a good opinion as to what he thought.
Yeah.
But again, he's the actor, so... Sorry, Luke.
I mean, yeah, I guess I understand the idea of that. Like, it is the production. It's, I guess you could say, Lucasfilms. It's Disney's story.
Right.
He's the actor, so he's supposed to do the story. I do think that they should probably take into account the guy who has been such a big deal with the franchise, the face of the franchise, I would even say. Or at least the face of the franchise in the past. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, one of the biggest names. You kind of, like, take on... At least his opinion, do you know? Maybe at least work with him somehow and make it work a little better. Especially when you have someone like The Last Jedi, which really made a lot of fans angry. Even just adding like a little bit more of the old Luke. And that's kind of like what the big deal was, that this new Luke is not the Luke from the original trilogy. Do you know what I mean? That's what the idea is. And I understand like the concept of Luke has been around for 30 years now, right? Before this film.
Right.
So it's kind of like a big deal that he's done right. And some people feel like he was done incorrectly. He's not the same Luke that you would think to see after all this time. So that's kind of like the big deal with that one. But as far as Luke goes in Last Jedi, you were cool with him? He's always fine?
I think so. And you know, you think about Luke as because you don't know what the years in between. I mean, we've seen a few movies, but really when you think back, again, interpolation of what his years of life were. You know, because just between the movie parts, there's a lot more of Luke's life.
Yeah.
So what took him to want to be isolated as a hermit? Now keep in mind with his powers, he could still experience a lot more than just sitting on that island and fishing. But at the same time, that's where he really felt his inner soul should be. But what, and this is a good question, what really made him want to be there in life? Which one of the spots in the series of the movies, or was it somewhere in between the series of movies that really made Luke want to be his character sitting on an island as a hermit?
They kind of explain why he was there, but they never really go into further. Now, of course, you can read the books that come out. I'm sure that they'll go into more of the explanation to why things are the way they are. But that is true. I do think there could be like a deeper meaning there for why he chose to do that.
Right.
You know.
And that's where you know, you bring your own personal feelings into Luke's character, if you want to really think that deep. You know, some people are just going to say, "Oh, that's okay, Luke's done." But then, other people, if you really want to think about it, well, what took Luke to that spot in his life?
Okay.
You know,
yeah.
How exactly? Cool. What were the moments in his life, and not maybe just the ones we'd seen already on screen, but other Luke moments. How did he live? What did he do? What other things did he experience that really brought him to the point where he wanted to just hang out?
Yeah. So we got our last question here of the video. This is from Walk with Wolves, and he says, "Where do you see the franchise going after Episode 9, I should say. We haven't seen Episode 9 yet, so we don't know
Okay.
the ending of that story. But like, what do you think's gonna happen next? Do you think that Star Wars is gonna speed up, or do you think it's gonna start slowing down a little bit? Do you think it's gonna get a little people are gonna get deterred a little bit from it, not want to see it as much? It's gonna lose its popularity.
I think as generations go, and keep in mind that you've got a bunch of fans watching it right now. I mean, it's generational, is what it is, but it's going to wane for a little bit, I think, because they've punched out a bunch of things right now, a bunch of different movies, and it'll probably maybe go 5 years, 8 years, and then they'll start back again, because that's just how things work, cyclical. You know, the population kind of loses some interest, life changes, there's a new baby on the way for you, you know. That complicates things. It complicates how you do your entertainment, how you spend your extra dollar, and you know, theaters aren't exactly the cheapest place to go to it. You know, I understand they've got to make a living too. So who's to say, and certainly not me, where it's going to go next. But I do think it's going to be a pause. I think it's about due for a pause because of how many things they've put together recently in the last 5 years. It's probably due for a pause for society. And maybe it'll just, maybe it'll turn out one next year. Maybe they'll wait 5 years. My vote's probably 5 years.
5 years?
Yeah, until the next one comes out. And what direction they'll take it, I don't know who they're going to make the bad person next, because there's always good and bad. You have evil. So what's going to be the evil part next? Somebody else has got to step up and be the evil person. But we'll see.
I mean, so this is another question too. So as far as the future of the franchise, I'm adding on to this. So we saw Episode 8 this year. Episode 9 comes out next year. Do you think that they were going to end that whole saga at Episode 9, or do you think 5 years in the future or whatever, maybe 10, do you think they're going to do an Episode 10, 11, and 12? Another trilogy at some point.
Well, they probably won't break into a trilogy, at least not the thinking. But I wouldn't doubt if they already have things, you know, scripted in archives waiting to be used.
Yeah.
You know, all the big companies, they do that. They have guys with ideas, they get paid good money to be smart, and they are, and creative, and they probably have things already written that are sitting there waiting. Of course, we'll never know until it comes out. But, you know, I would certainly, if I was any of the large people involved with the companies, have something sitting up my sleeve and planned for somewhere in the future. So it'd be neat to see what it is. But of course, if we stick around long enough, we'll see what it is. Yeah.
Now, speaking of the franchise, I actually remember in 2005, after watching Episode 3, I was like, "Oh, Dad, do you think that they're going to make Episode 7, 8, and 9?" And you're like, "Oh, they'll probably wait 10 years, and then they'll probably start. Then they'll make more. They're gonna do like a generational thing or whatever, like you said." I initially was like, "No, what do you mean? Episode 3 was so big." I was like, "No, it's got to come out like next year, and the year after that, whatever." And guess what? That was back in 2005. In 2015, The Force Awakens came out.
Yeah, there you go.
You called 10 years. You called it.
Yeah. So I didn't recall that, but
yeah, it was true. I remembered you saying that, and I was like, I have to bring that up in this video. So there you go, guys. The reason why we have new Star Wars is because of my father. So you're welcome.
Right. Said it's going to come back. It did. There you go.
So there you go, guys. That was a video. That was a video. That was a video. I'm pretty sure. So there you go.
Easy for you to say.
So there you go, guys. This was the Father's Day special. I want to thank you to my father here for coming.
Hey, well, thanks for having me.
Soon to be net granddad. And we'll have him more on the channel. If you want to see more of him, let me know in the comments below. I'll also have a poll up here, so go ahead and vote. Maybe I'll have him more on the video. We'll talk about more Star Wars fun and stuff like that. Now, before we go, any more things you might want to add to like this entire thing, like about the Star Wars franchise altogether?
I don't think I need to say much about the Star Wars, but what's kind of fun to think about, and I'm not that old again, but I was still alive at the point when we first landed on the moon, if it wasn't, you know, somewhere in Arizona maybe. But so kind of I really did forget to say the fact that that was part of the upbringing. Was we got to see as our age the space exploration of our real life people getting out of our planet, flying around someplace, and so they tell me, I wasn't there, but they tell me we landed on the moon. So, you know, and then now we're talking about all this, and it's just a fun time, you know, to have experienced that event from life as a kid, seeing the first things I talked about, men on the moon, Neil Armstrong, and then finally we're here discussing what hey, who knows, someday maybe a potential of us being in space. Keep in mind
That's
that our
true.
latest president has just said that we need to now have a space force. So think about it. You know, we are flying around up there. We've got the ISS cruising around all the
That's
time.
a good point.
As a planet, we are now looking towards having multiple space vehicles in space with people all the time. We already do.
Like a space military.
But more. And now we're talking possibly a space military.
Wow.
So we could be on our way. Who
Yeah,
knows?
that's actually really interesting. So there you go, guys. I hope you had a great time. Once again, thank you to my father for coming.
My pleasure.
We had fun.
We had fun.
We had fun.
And
Good.
we'll go see some more movies when they come
Yeah.
out. One last thing. Net, I am your father.
No! That's impossible! It's like throw my bottle. Ah! Knock over the camera. Okay, that's it. We'll catch you guys later.
See you later.
Peace.